which is about the API tooling landscape. And this one will be given to us by Mehdi Medjaoui, who's the founder and chairman of these very conferences, API Days. Mehdi is also the co-founder of GDPR Dev and OAuth.io. He's also the co-author of the API Industry Landscape 2019, the State of API Documentation, and the State of Banking APIs 2019. He's been hired as an EU Commission expert on APIs and is an invited professor at HEC MBA and EM Lyon. Please welcome Mehdi Medjaoui.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. Are you able to see my slides yet? Yeah, let me put it in full screen. Are you able to see it in full screen?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm really glad to be here at Apidays Singapore to present you the API industry tooling landscape, the 1200, let's say, API tooling that every API product manager, every tech manager should know or must know about APIs. So a little bit about me, thank you for the introduction. I'm the founder and chairman of Apidays conferences, and since 2012, let's say we study, we focus on helping managers navigate into that landscape of API tooling. If you're interested about our latest publication, especially mine, three can really interest you. The first one is the Continuous API Management Book, second edition, just released a few months ago. After the success of the first edition 4 years ago, augmented and revised edition for about continuous API management. Also to report about, let's say, data at the policy level. The first one is a report on API for governments, why, how, and what, and also a report on data portability by the law and without APIs, and actually to see it doesn't work perfectly. So this is what we will talk about in the next 20 minutes. It's the API landscape. It's the 1200 tools that composing the landscape, and that can help you to build APIs, so you can actually understand how you can design, document, develop, test, secure, manage, version, and promote APIs to your community. This landscape is composed actually in 5 main parts. The first one is API lifecycle platforms. The second one is backend tools. The third one is what I call API as a product or business process as a service. The fourth is our integration platform as a service. And the fifth are what we call vertical API abstraction in API aggregators. With these 5 big layers and their subsections, you will be able to really understand the full landscape. Let's dive into that landscape and let's see what are the trends actually that we can see from the data of these 1200 companies. The first, but let's also celebrate the total funding in the size of the industry. It's today the API tooling industry is a $174 billion of industry, and we will dive exactly into which section, so you will understand how which part is really dynamic these days. So in a number of tools, we can see that the majority of tools are really in the business process as a service. Of course, you have the pure transversal and horizontal API tools, but you have also these like pure product that replacing business as a service over time. So we will see that actually this section is growing and growing, where the others are also growing, but at the lower pace. So let's dive into these API lifecycle platforms. So in these API lifecycle platforms, let's say you can have different parts like the API consulting, API management, design documentation, access and identity management, testing, security, like what we call the IoT platform, network devices API, API analytics and monitoring APIs, streaming and event-driven architecture, and developer portal. So the full lifecycle can be represented into this section. On funding, it's really the API management space that is the more mature, the more global, and you can see directly in terms of investment, you can see the huge aspect there. And each company you can see like most of the company you can see like IBM, like Sensedia here, Postman, Pronovix, Axway, like Apigee, all these companies that you know that you are familiar with and which are often sponsors of our event. So yeah, really this tooling really is important for the industry. The second part are the backend building tools. So really these backend enabling technologies. And again, in these backend building tools, 200 products, mostly infrastructure, cloud, serverless, some dedicated industry backend like banking and finance, some backend for deploying just APIs like, you know, database as a service or whatever, some headless CMS. It's a really important aspect. Mobile backend as a service. Even the trend is not as dynamic as before, and also where blockchain APIs or for APIs to be able to connect to the blockchain. And again, the funding is mostly on infrastructure and cloud and serverless because of this wide capability, but we can see quite traction into really new aspect like blockchain APIs, for example. Some companies, just to give you a hint, but like Cloudflare Workers, for example, like the CDN company, LuxHub, like a backend for building a bank, let's say bank APIs and bank developer portal, or Strapi, which is a headless CMS that will help you to build any content-based website, but which is API driven and API first and API powered. The API as a product aspect, as I say, the business as a service is where we see the more product. And again, so here every part of the industry can be represented, like every business process, and this is growing really fast. And actually, even this landscape cannot really cover them all, but it's all about transactional APIs like emailing or SMS or payments. It's about e-commerce, AI. Some forms API, just an API to provide forms, an API to provide human work, like Mechanical Turks, to legal, regulatory, some calendar API. So really this business process as a service API there. And you can see that actually the king business process that has been API powered is payments, definitely. We can see also email and messaging as really the second main player, but really it's all the processes that are now worldwide at scale and that completely API powered over the last 10 years are also payment and emailing, but you can see there are many others and many opportunities actually for entrepreneurs to build APIs as for business process as a service. To name a few, like Twilio, for example, for communications, Algolia for search engine, Primer AI for natural language processing, but Stripe for payments, SendGrid for emailing, or MailChimp, or all this stuff. So again, these business processes are really key into that tooling landscape. The integration platform as a service, right? So mostly we can see finance aggregators, automation orchestration platform, database as a service, or the more wide API aggregators. And again, we can see that this is really powered, and the landscape is really funded mostly for automation and orchestration compared to others. And the vertical API abstractions or vertical API aggregators, again, 80 product, but again, it's really purely let's say industry focused or sectorial focused, like healthcare, marketing, login, finance, delivery, transport, logistics, smart home facilities, or cloud storage. And you can see here that the main the Godzilla sector, the one who has the more let's say funding there is really the financial aspect, like vertical API abstraction for finance, mostly because of regulations obliging it. Few examples here, but Human API, a health data resource API for clinics and wearables and insurance platforms. Okta, a login aggregation API, or Segment, acquired by Twilio, $3.2 billion, marketing and customer data platform API. So let's see now the trends. We've identified like really 5 main trends, and we will try to share it with you today. The first one is like, on all of this, API management has become a commodity, leading to new open source growth. Let's say for how we can see that. So market research estimate that the API management market is like almost $2 billion of revenues, and is projected to reach $13 billion of revenue with a compounded annual growth rate at 28%. So it's really, really trendy. So it will go really wide and huge adoption. So you can see that there is a recent consolidation on the market players. So this is here all the buyers and all the acquisitions. You can see Broadcom has acquired CA Technology, who had acquired Layer 7, who had and Runscope and Veracode and BlazeMeter. Google has acquired APG and AppSheet. APG had acquired UserGrid before, and so yeah. So you can see actually there is a huge consolidation on the market, on the top players. Every solution vendor, every software company wanted their API management solution. So this is a sign that it's really a commodity. And as I said, because it was a commodity and every software player has it, so sometimes this is where innovation takes another path. So this is why we've seen many open source API management providers. We've seen their old ones, like WSO2, for example, who has been there for a longer time, or Red Hat. But there are a little more recent new ones, like Gravity, Kong, Tyke, or more recent, or also recently Nginx, that they deliver the specific API management product. And we can see these companies actually have raised a lot. They have a huge user base. Solo.io, for example, just raised like 130 million last year. It's really like growing a section that is growing in the global API management section. So the open source aspect is extremely important. And in the stack, the API tooling stack is more and more open source. So yeah, and these companies are powering it. So really, after this trend zero, as we can see, that API management is a commodity, and open source leading to new open source growth. The first trend we can see is like really the explosion of tech regulation set to impact the API industry. In Singapore, especially, right? But you can see many countries are having regulation on APIs. The main one is about open banking regulation, so obliging banks to open APIs. So you can see Europe has led with PSD2 regulation, but many other places are actually either with effective implementation, or early implementation, or current reviews. Right, so Singapore is part of the effective implementation aspect, but you can see a lot of places of the world are pushing for APIs. Not only in banking, in healthcare, mostly powered by the US first, but like the HL7 Fire APIs, the smart application, as you can see, and yes, and you can see many articles about like health record joining the API economy as new rules to go live. More and more standards adopted on API for healthcare with the Fire and HL7 standard. Not only in the US, but adopted in many countries of the world, and regulation obliging to adopt APIs to transfer data. So not only banking, but also healthcare now. The last one is about data portability in general. You're familiar with the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, but many other countries are having their own regulation obliging, let's say, to give back personal data to users, so involving APIs at some point. 60 countries are also pushing for regulation with advanced implementation, or let's say a review. But yeah, again, so you have to also understand that you will have to open APIs now for users if you based on these regulations. The number two is that the emergence of industry-specific solutions. We've seen a little bit in the tooling landscape, but we can see, especially in banking, government, insurance, and healthcare. Of course, when sometimes there's a regulation, there will be a dedicated solution. So you can see here in the tooling landscape, the two subsections, right, about banking, finance, insurance backends, or API aggregators for finance, representing almost 130 tooling platforms. And you can see an example like some API management for open banking only, like company like Yapili or TrueLayer. You can see like some company, for example, like Gravity, who just put a financial grade API capability into their platform, or even WSO2, who just got funding from Goldman Sachs, a bank, to extend banking specific open source solution. We see also about the insurance aspect. There is a new, let's say, more recent network called the Open Insurance Initiative. Like it's many insurers or insurtech companies who wants to open APIs as a whole industry before regulation. So we can see that now some companies here are providing dedicated solution, for example, the Open Insurance Initiative. And actually, that leads to the third thread, is that now, because some people are obliged to open APIs because of regulation or because of the COVID-19 crisis that obliged to open and make the systems more open, API security is now a standalone product. And privacy actually is coming right after, but API security is now the standalone product because let's say that, first, where we had the DevSecOps approach, like the ability to, as we say, shift left and shield right, putting the security directly into the developer workflow. But also the fact that many companies have opened APIs in the recent 2 years because of COVID-19 without really looking at what's going on. A lot of shadow APIs that are not monitored, not managed, that we can't govern because we don't know they have been opened. And so that makes potential data leaks, pushing by GDPR regulation, and also new cyber threats. Security is now key, and we can see like dedicated solutions. So, for example, this is a number about the companies who the industries who have digitized before and after the COVID-19. So you can see a lot of industries have grown. And you can see dedicated API security companies, like 33 tools in the landscape, but with recent funding of 60 million, 40 million, 100 million, like it's really trendy. It's an industry inside the more global API management industry. The trend 4 is that APIs are a new layer of business in tech infrastructure. I love this quote from Jeff Lawson of Twilio. The world is getting broken down into APIs. Every part of the stack is of business that a developer might need to build is eventually turning into APIs that developers can use. This is the business process as a service we were talking about. And you can see this as a global supply chain, but not for physical goods, but now on digital goods, all connected and programmable via their own APIs. The payment, the emailing, the search engine, the maps, APIs, whatever, are all the pieces that will enable you to build application that you will assemble yourself. It's not about cars, now it's about applications. And you can see there in the landscape specific trends in the business process as a service section. So I really invite you to check about the landscape, where I will share the link in few seconds. And top companies here are known like Stripe, Twilio, Adyen, Plaid for banking, SendGrid for emailing, Avalara for tax calculation. So even tax calculation has their API as a business process as a service. So just to tell you, all business processes are being APIfied. So before you build your own business process as a service internally, look if there's not an API that can do that already on Google search, right? It's also enabled by the fact that we have more and more standards, like pushed by the Open API initiative. The Open API specification, async API, gRPC, JSON schema, GraphQL, Vulkan, or JSON LD. So many more de facto standard that are pushed. So let's say we can build more as a global supply chain because we know an API we build will be easily integrable by others because we respect standards. And number 5 is the low code and the growth of citizen developers enabled by APIs. So mostly because of this automation and orchestration tools, we can see it's totally growing. It's tools, like Zapier or Retool or AppSheet or sometimes Gravity, some platforms, API management platforms are having dedicated low code tooling and so embracing not only developers but the business managers who wants to connect APIs or orchestrate APIs for business applications. So the drivers, mostly IT teams are really busy. Business managers wants to be able to have their own hands on the thing, and they don't want to do shadow IT. So they want to be able to have these useful APIs to be able to do the job. And more SaaS are available directly via API. So let's say this global orchestration and connection are possible. So we have tooling, API tooling for developers, but now we have API tooling for citizen developers, business managers. And so to finish, and I just reached the 20-minute mark. So key summary. API management market is growing fast by becoming a commodity, creating open source communities and new companies. Secondly, regulation are enforcing the publishing and the use of APIs and are creating new opportunities for companies to build just a solution dedicated to this industry, or existing players to build a product dedicated to this industry on API tooling. The specialization of API management is being specified towards specific industry, especially because of regulations or because of market adoption, like mostly in banking, healthcare, supply chain, and insurance. Because of rapid COVID digitization, API security has been a standalone no product, right? So some companies now claim that API management is not enough. You need pure players on API security solution, not just API gateways, not just an API management solution, but API security now is a standalone product that you add to your classic API management solution because of new threats, of course. APIs are the new business infrastructure and the new technical stack, right? So look, there's probably an API for that. If you're looking for something to build, someone has probably built it on the internet as a company and as an API. So look for it, and you will decide to build versus buy decision on your own. And last but not least, citizen developers are the next API users and consumers. So we see more and more tooling in the API tooling landscape, but for citizen developers, like people, business managers, who will just understand the use case and connect APIs in a drag and drop interface, or what you see is what you get interface, versus being able to code directly against the API. That was the state of the API industry. You can go on our website to download the report, or you can go on apilandscape.apiscene.io. I will share the link directly to be able to browse the landscape yourself. And actually, if I go there directly, I hope you can see my screen. There, are you able to see my screen? Yes, I think you can. So this is the landscape you can browse, right? So the 1,200 almost companies, right? So you can browse them into their different section, and you can go, for example, here. If we go to a company like Postman, you can go on with some numbers we collect on them, like funding, estimated revenue, number of blog posts, founders, and everything. So yeah, I invite you to visit that landscape as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mehdi. Question, I'm interested in the idea of citizen developers. We hear that a lot, and it seems to me that that's only possible with APIs. That really is the only way you can do it. So have you seen that implemented effectively anywhere, the idea of the low code and the citizen developer?
Yeah, truly. The no code, the low code is enabled by APIs. It's because of APIs that we're able to abstract APIs, let's say, developer interface into more consumable interface. For example, there's a book coming of Jeremy Glassenberg on embed the technologies, or all of this is enabled by APIs. But yeah, we see implementation. So for example, there's a neobank called Quanto. They have great developers, but they have a no-code department. They hire no-code developer. So funny, you previously you have to learn to code, and now you have even bootcamps to learn to no code. So that's really funny. But yeah, some companies have dedicated department of no-code applications for their team. It can be startup or larger companies. So definitely is the case. And this is why API management solution like Apigee, for example, acquired AppSheet, or Gravity have their own low-code or no-code tooling. Yeah, it is working. It's and in some companies, it's even a full strategy. My developers for, let's say, application I really want to own, my no-code developers for people who wants to do MVP fast, prototype fast, and to stop the shadow IT movement. with no code to counter the shadow IT aspect.
Great. Thank you very much, Mehdi.
Thank you. Thank you too for having me.